Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, folks, for inviting me to come, stop by and visit with you today, and give you an update about what Churches of Christ Disaster Relief is doing, and also to present a lesson during this hour. For those of you who are not here the previous hour, there's some material on the table. If you're not familiar with us, this is a brief introduction, a little bit about us and our beginning. 2 sheets up there. One is a summary of what we did last year, where we sent $5.2 million of relief supplies. And the other one is a summary of what we've done the first 2 months of this year. One thing I didn't mention the previous hour, and I'm not going to talk about everything that we did talk about, is that in addition to our staff and the volunteers that come in and pack all the boxes, our truck drivers are volunteers. They're willing to get behind that truck and take it wherever it needs to go and deliver the relief supplies to people so they can survive whatever disaster they've just gone through. And these folks do a tremendous work. We've only had 1 truck driver to deliver 2 semi-truckloads in the same day. It's during some disaster over in the Carolinas several years ago. Sam had taken a load and delivered it and was coming back on I-40, and he saw in the eastbound lane one of our trucks on the side of the road. So as soon as he could, he turned around and went back, and the tractor had broken down. So Sam unhooked his trailer, hooked up to this trailer, and delivered it. So he got the recommendation of being the guy that delivered 2 truckloads of relief supplies to 2 different places in the same day. Helene, the hurricane that 2 years ago that began down in northern Florida, came on up across Georgia and the Carolinas, into East Tennessee, and even into southern Virginia. 23 truckloads left our facilities in Niceville in 25 days. From Florida all the way up. The one that come to Virginia went to Damascus, but we unloaded the truck in Abingdon because couldn't get a truck over to Damascus. They didn't have a place to unload the truck. So it's a difficult work. Some of our truck drivers go the extra mile. We have 1 volunteer truck driver in Somerset, Kentucky. And you look at a map and he's got a good drive to go to Nashville to pick up a truck and take it wherever it needs to go. They're willing to go at any time. At our staff meetings, we often talk about, have you noticed how many disasters take place during holidays or during weekends? You know, the normal hours for the folks in Nashville are Monday through Friday. They get to work about 8 o'clock in the morning and they leave about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But if there needs to be, they'll be there on the weekend and they'll be there on holidays. A few years ago, a tornado hit down in the state of Mississippi. Hit on December the 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Did a lot of damage. We contacted one of the elders in the church there, and he said, we need a truck as soon as we can get it. And so they began to work on it. So they loaded the truck the day before Christmas. Find a volunteer truck driver. He said, well, I cannot go until late today. We have a family tradition on Christmas Eve that our family gathers together and we celebrate Christmas, we exchange gifts, we have a good meal together. And as soon as I can leave that, I will take that truckload down to Mississippi. He left Nashville Christmas Eve night at 11 o'clock. He was in the town in Mississippi in time to unload the truck that morning, the following morning. Well, the elder they talked to down there is the principal, or the superintendent rather, of the county school system. So he contacted all of his principals and said, if you have families affected by this tornado, give me their names and addresses. So when they unloaded the truck Christmas morning, they reloaded vans and pickup trucks and began to deliver relief supplies to these families immediately. You think about Christmas. You think about people who have family traditions and how many were upset. Not in a bad sense, being upset, but turned upside down because of the storm that happened 2 days before Christmas. And a truck driver is willing to drive at night, Christmas Eve night, so the supplies will be there on Christmas morning. The volunteers from the church who are willing to unload and reload their trucks and go out and deliver these supplies. I do not know, and I don't say this just because I'm a part of it, but I do not know of any organization within the Churches of Christ that has as many people involved, willing to do whatever needs to be done, whenever it needs to be done, as we do. We have a small staff. I think there's 13 of us now. A couple of years ago there were 15, then 14, now there's 13 of us. And 5 of us are scattered around the country. The others are there in Nashville. But we have numerous volunteers that come in and do things, and pack the boxes and have things ready to go. And then when we deliver churches, they have volunteers to get these supplies to people. And sometimes we forget that where the disaster took place, some of the church volunteers that are helping other people, they were affected directly by the disaster as well. But they're out there helping other people. And then you take all the people who make donations to us, all the congregations, all the individuals. I just don't know of anything else within the Churches of Christ that has that many people involved in trying to help people. And we just want to do it for the glory of God and for service to people who are hurting following these disasters. The text that was read for us, Luke chapter 10, the story of the Good Samaritan. Very familiar text, one that you probably read many times. You probably heard preachers preach from it. You talk about it in Bible classes. Betty began to teach preschoolers at the age of 15. Church in Sweetwater was a small mission church. And the preacher's wife, when Betty was 15, took her into the class and said, I want you to observe me in teaching these children, preschool kids. And after doing that several weeks, the preacher's wife turned around to her and said, now it's your class. You have the responsibility to teach these. And she's taught preschoolers most of her life. Not only in church, she worked with Head Start for a number of years. But I say all of that, I wonder if she had kept a record how many times she told these little kids the story of the Good Samaritan. It never gets old. I love the story. I love the message it has for us. And I love reminding people of that message. Very few people do. I inform them of that message. They already know it. But I want to remind you. I want to repeat a lesson that you've heard numerous times. You know, you learn a lot of things by repeating. I can remember, I don't know how they do it in school today, but I remember when we began to learn to multiply. How did I learn to do that? A piece of paper and a pencil. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times. And I repeat it over and over, and finally, it's here. And we did the same thing with learning to spell words. We just repeat them to where all of a sudden we know how to spell them. The same thing is true with biblical stories. And the setting for this story is a lawyer comes to Jesus, and he really wants to put him to the test. He wants to try to get Jesus to say something that he could find fault with, that he might ensnare Jesus. So he raises 2 questions. One, a very simple question. I wonder why he asked it. What I need to do to have eternal life. How are you going to trick Jesus with that question? But you notice Jesus didn't answer the question. And sometimes it's best not to answer the question. Allow the person who asks it to answer it themselves. And that's what Jesus did with the lawyer. You're familiar with the law. You're familiar with the word, with the law of Moses. You tell me what one must do. He said, you love God with all that you are. You love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and you love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said, that's true. You want eternal life? Do that, and you'll live. But remember now, the lawyer came to put Jesus to the test. The second question, maybe we'll do that. If I'm to love my neighbor as myself, will you tell me who my neighbor is? Now think now, we're back in the first century. This is a Jewish lawyer asking Jesus, who is Jewish, who is my neighbor? In the first century, the answer would have been, no Gentile is your neighbor. No Samaritan is your neighbor. Only a descendant of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, but on down. Only a fellow Israelite, a fellow Jew can be your neighbor. And some might have even narrowed it down more than that. A good Pharisee might not accept a Sadducee as his neighbor. They're both descendants of Abraham. But the Pharisee might say, well, that Sadducee, he doesn't believe in angels, he doesn't believe in the resurrection, and so on. And how can he be my neighbor? So maybe Jesus will answer the question in a way that the lawyer can find fault with. But I have an idea the lawyer was surprised that Jesus didn't answer the question the way he wanted him to. He didn't say, this person is your neighbor or this one isn't. He said, let me tell you a story. And he tells him the story that we call the story of the Good Samaritan. About a man traveling down the road from Jerusalem to Samaria, or to Jericho. As he travels down that road, and it's a dangerous road. One should not travel it by himself. And people normally didn't. Many years ago, I was in Jamaica, and I'd been someplace by myself, and I'd come back to where we were staying, and the fellow we were renting from asked me where I'd been. And I told him. He said, which way did you come? And I told him. He said, I don't travel that road. That's a dangerous road. They're always blocking that road and robbing people. And so I never travel that road anymore either. But this road that this man is traveling is that way. You just didn't travel by yourself. But he, for some reason, maybe he was running late, he had to hurry and get somewhere. He's taking the trip. And out there somewhere along the road are some bad guys. I don't know how many thieves there were. The word is plural, so there are at least two. There may have been more than that. But they see this man coming, and he's by himself. And they say, look what's coming here. We outnumber him. We can overpower him. We can take from him anything that he has that we want. And that's what they did. And by the time they were through with him, they had stripped him of everything. They had wounded him. And they left him lying beside the road half dead, unable to help himself. Well, Jesus tells the story. A priest comes down the road. And you think, what better person to arrive on the scene than the priest? He's God's man. He's a man of God. He officiates at the temple in Jerusalem. Now, whether he's on the way to the temple for his time of service or whether he's going back home, he's traveling down the road. And he sees the man lying there. And no doubt it only took a glance to tell that this man needs help. But the priest did not stop to help him. As a matter of fact, he got on the other side of the road, got as far away from him as he could, and continued his journey. Now, we could speculate why the priest didn't stop to help, but that doesn't help the story. Another man comes. He's a Levite. Means he's a member of the tribe of Levi. That's the tribe from which the priesthood comes. And again, you would think this is God's man, a man of God. He's going to do something. But you know what he did? He did something the priest didn't do. He paused. He hesitated and looked upon the man. And you think, surely after he did that, he's going to go to him. But no, he does what the priest did. He gets on the other side of the road and continues his journey and leaves the poor man there to die. A third man comes. He's a Samaritan. Everybody in the story thus far that you can identify are Jewish. The lawyer who asked the question, Jesus who's telling the story, the priest and the Levite in the story. It's a possibility that the man dying on the side of the road is, and even the thieves were. But this Samaritan is not Jewish. As a matter of fact, the Jewish people looked down upon him, would not associate with him. If they did, they had to go through a ceremonial cleansing for associating with a Samaritan. He is a mixed race person. His culture is different. He worships God different. And the Jewish people had no dealings with him. And if you remember the map of that part of the country, you have Galilee and Judea, and in between them is Samaria. And a Jewish person would not travel through Samaria unless they just had to. They would circle Samaria, going down to Galilee or going to Judea, rather than travel through. But you remember on one occasion, Jesus and his disciples did travel through Samaria. And they stopped by a well. And Jesus sat there while his disciples went into town to get some food. And while Jesus sat there, a woman comes to draw water. And Jesus asked this Samaritan woman, will you give me a drink? Can you imagine how surprised, astonished, amazed this Samaritan woman was? A Jewish man asked me, a Samaritan woman, to give him a drink of water? That was just unheard of. He just didn't deal with them that way. But Jesus did. But anyway, back to the story. The Samaritan sees the man lying beside the road. And he has compassion. He has pity. And he goes to him and administers first aid. He uses something for a bandage. He has some wine. He has some oil with him. Pours it on his wounds. Puts him on his animal. Leads an animal as they go on down the road and they come to an inn. He gets a room, continues to take care of this man until the next day. The next day, the Samaritan must continue his journey. The wounded man isn't able yet. So what does he do? I can't just leave him. Oh, I'll get the innkeeper. Goes and inquires of the innkeeper, will you take care of this man I brought in here yesterday until he's able to travel? Here's some money. He gives him 2 denarii and says, now if you spend more than that, when I come back, you give me the bill and I'll reimburse you for everything you spend. Simple story, isn't it? So Jesus tells this story and then he turns to the lawyer, who proved to be neighbor to the man who fell among the thieves. The lawyer said, the one who showed mercy. I'm not going to question God's wisdom and the inspiration of the Bible, but in my mind, I wish the lawyer had said the Samaritan. But he answered correctly. The one who showed mercy happened to be the Samaritan. And then Jesus tells him, I want you to go and do what he did. Can you imagine this proud Jewish lawyer being told to follow the example of this Samaritan? That's what Jesus tells him to do. Go and do what he did. I think that lesson is still for us today. We need to go and do what the Samaritan did. What did he do? 4 principles are involved, or at least 4. One is he saw somebody who needed him. Someone who needed his help, his assistance. Number 2, when he saw him, he had compassion upon him. Number 3, he did what he could do. And the 4th thing is, What he couldn't do, he got someone else to do it. Fourth thing. That's what we need to do today. We have opportunities day after day after day to be a Samaritan. We see people who need us. There are always people who are needing people. And the point is, what do? Do we pass by on the other side? Or do we have compassion and respond and do something? I really didn't get a chance to look at the bulletin, so I'm going to turn and look at it now. You have a prayer list. Every congregation I go to has a prayer list. People who are sick, people who are homebound, people who are in hospital, families who have lost a loved one, someone been in an accident, some tragedy. We always have people on the prayer list. And we need to pray for them. But do we need to do something else? Is there some way that we need to minister to them? Do they need food? Do they need some financial help? Do they need somebody to provide transportation for them? Do they need somebody to take care of the children if they have children? And the list can go on and on of opportunities where we can be a neighbor to people in those times of tragedy, of illness and death and different things. And sometimes, though, there are things that we cannot do. If someone came to you this afternoon and confessed to you, I have this addiction. You know, maybe alcohol, maybe drugs, it may be I can't help myself, I steal stuff all the time. What would you do? Or maybe they come to you and said, I've got some other problems that I'm trying to deal with. And they tell you they're being tempted to become a homosexual. What do you do? Well, I confess, I don't have the expertise to deal with any of that. But what I do, I tell the person I love them. I pray for them. And I get someone, the innkeeper, I get someone that has the expertise to help them. 2 weeks ago, got on this little thing here, and somebody sent me a message. And I look at the message and it says, "Hey, Paul." That's all it says. I respond to that because I know who sent it. And I said, "How are things?" I hadn't heard from you in a long time. Not doing so good. Just got out of jail. Spent 5 months in jail. Lost my car. Lost about everything I have. And we exchanged messages a little back and forth a little. I said, I know a person that I think can probably help you if you'll reach out to him. And I told him his name. I said, "Do you know him?" And they live in a small town. And he said, "No, I don't know him." I said, "Well, he goes to the Church of Christ, whose building is across the street from the high school. Why don't you go to church Sunday and meet him and tell him you need to talk to him?" I really didn't have a lot of confidence that he would go to church. But I got a message back Sunday afternoon. I went to church this morning. I met him and I met the preacher. And we talked about some things. And the preacher gave me his card and his phone number so I can call him anytime I need to. Well, sometimes that's the way you try to help people. I get a call back on Tuesday from one of the other men in the congregation. He said, I didn't get to talk to him then. I had already left before he got up the courage to talk to Sam. But just said, we're going to do what we can for him. He said, as a matter of fact, one of the men has him out now. They're trying to find out what they have to do to get his car that's impounded. He's going to try to get him a job. And that's what it's about, isn't it? And that being a neighbor, he's 750 miles from me. I can't be there, but I can call upon people, or I can send him to people, refer him to people that can probably help him. I sent him a text yesterday. I said, well, what did you think of church? Because I doubt if he'd been to church in a long, long time. Are you going back tomorrow? He said, if I can get a ride. Well, he got a ride last week. Surely he got a ride today. I'll find out later whether he got back or not. I pray that he did. It's just reaching out and doing what we can do to help people. And getting other people involved to do that which you cannot do. Well, my time's about up, but let's go to the Churches of Christ Disaster Relief for just a minute. That's what we're about. It's helping people that need help desperately. I don't know what it's like to lose everything in a storm. I know what it's like to go through a storm. 1988, I had a group of Auburn University students in Jamaica when Hurricane Gilbert come roaring through, which was a Cat 4, maybe even a Cat 5. It's a fierce storm. I saw the destruction. But that wasn't mine. I didn't lose anything. We lost time. Our campaign come to a roaring stop. And had Betty and everybody of these college students, parents back home wondering about us because communication in 1988 isn't what it is today. But I wonder sometimes what would it be like if I lost everything through a flood, a tornado, or a wildfire. What would I do? I think, to be honest, I'd probably say, why me? Lord, I've been your servant all of my life. Why did this happen to me? And I think after I got over that selfish thinking, I'd look around and say, there's people lost as much or more than I did. How can I help them? I lost everything. I've got a few dollars in my pocket. Got some more in the bank, but I can't get it because there's no way of accessing the bank account. They're closed. It's like one person sent an email down to Nashville to a friend and said, our town, devastated by the flood. We don't have a health clinic. We don't have a police department. We don't have a post office. We don't have a bank. All of it is flooded. So how can I help? Those are the thoughts that went through the minds of people back in 1990. And they began to meet and talk. And how can we do a better job of helping people after disasters? How can we do a better job in responding in the way that we do? Because the way that we're doing it then, we're going to load a truck and take it down to wherever you bring stuff and put in it. What do we do? We bring a lot of used clothing. We bring a lot of things that we don't use anymore. And a lot of it can't be used when it gets there. So as I talk about it and work on it, what is today Churches of Christ Disaster Relief has evolved out of that. We want to be able to respond to a congregation with the supplies so they can minister to the people in their community. You see, we deliver the supplies. When that truck is unloaded, our driver gets back in it, and he comes back to Nashville. The local congregation, they're ministering to their neighbors, to the people they worked with, and the people they associated with that lost things. And they're reaching out and touching their lives. I just wonder, I made mention of Union City, Michigan earlier, no congregation in that town. What kind of impact does it make on the people of that town when churches of Christ in 3 different communities come in and are ministering to those people? It's got to make an impact. Several years ago when the storm Sandy hit on Long Island, we sent truckload after truckload up to the Jersey Shore and out on, also on Long Island. And the Long Island Church of Christ, they began to minister to people. And in a very short time, they'd set up 100 Bible studies of people that had reached out to. Not all churches do that, but some do. And that's what we hope all of them would do. It's a great evangelistic opportunity, not just a benevolence. Use it for the glory of God and to reach people. Come to Nashville sometime and visit our facilities. Come down and volunteer sometime. It's fun putting those can openers and things in boxes. I told about our team during the pandemic doing it, but I was in there on another occasion, and we were loading, they were packing the boxes, and I found out you got to be careful. Somebody will run over you in order to do what they're trying to do. Thank you for all that you've done in the past financially to help us. And I left a truck with you once before, and I'm going to leave a truck with you again today. I don't have to carry it back out to the van. That truck will remind you of who we are and what we do. There's an invitation song been selected. I don't know your life. I don't know your needs. I don't know if you need to respond or not. But surely we give you that opportunity. If you need to become a Christian, just come believing that Jesus is the Son of God. Confess Him before us. Be buried with Him in baptism. If you've done that and you felt to stay true and faithful to Him, it's time to come back. Just come back repenting. Ask the brethren to pray for you. If you have other needs, will you come while we stand and sing?
I have decided.